back into it. So I just left off with getting all of the different transformations that I want to be able to do, at least in 2D, working. I'm not going to make a leap to 3D today. So where I want to go next is I want to get text rendering going so that I can see the names of these things, and then start trying to build out just some controls that I can use to get through this data. So we'll turn off rolling select. Let's see, it's time to pull this all out into a separate function. Gather scripts. This part here. So this is going to become the draw sprite function. That's going to go there. Look like that. Great. And then there's an asset parameter, origin, x-axis, y-axis. That should have grabbed everything. But it pulled stuff above the spot where we can see this. I see. So let's do this. Okay. Everything's still working. Rotation, shear. It's kind of annoying me how they're like split up. Okay. Where to go next? We got the draw there. One option is to build up the command buffer thing that's actually going to happen here so that I could prepare to draw multiple sprites simultaneously. But I've been putting that off because I also would need to get the texture atlasing going. For that to mean anything, I mean, the most I could do right now is draw the same asset multiple times, but I don't have any method of submitting a list of multiple tiles that are different all in a single batch, even at the lowest level of the graphics programming yet. I just haven't organized it. So I'd have to chase that down to care about that. So I think I'll just leave that way. And that brings up the question, if I'm going to start trying to look at this with the information of the data, then I want, how am I going to get text on the screen? And I think that there are two approaches I have available. One is getting text on the screen is the entire point of my 2D tool rendering layer, right? I already have reusable abstraction that is implemented in OpenGL already. So I can just put it on top of what I've got. And that should be possible. This is the first time I've ever gotten so far into a project that I'm like resolving a multi-sample buffer, and now I'm thinking about putting text on it. So I've never actually had the opportunity to test it out and learn what doesn't work. It's kind of an interesting opportunity to do it that way. And if that works, then I would save myself the hassle of duplicating that work, right? So the alternative is to just redo text rendering in this project and not reuse the old one, which would mean traveling over all the same ground again and trying to figure out how much I'm going to try to reuse and deduplicate, right? I think full integration is better for me this time because even though I would usually like to just build something from scratch, I already have code like this that I would like to be able to reuse. It's my code and I control it, but I also want to reuse it. So I'm kind of talking myself into the idea of trying to add the rendering layer in place into this program. And I think the long-term goal of this, this is a little side project for funsies kind of day. The long-term goal of this side project, if I ever get back to it and keep going, is to be able to inspect this tile set and sort of inspecting attached metadata that I want to add and organize it and find things that I want and search through it and stuff like that. And at the same time, the immediate goal that I could adopt is to have a real test case for my render layer that I've never had before. So I'm going to switch gears here and say that long-term goal is still real and it's still out there, but right here and now, I'm about to test out for the first time if my render layer can be layered on top of a sophisticated OpenGL app with minimal headache or if it's a total disaster. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay. Fortunately, I don't know if anything in this code is actually using the render layer. It doesn't look like it is. Okay. Other side projects. One of these has a render layer tie-in for sure. Not Podcastoscope. Actually, that's a good question. How is Podcastoscope coming up? What's the path to this file? It's not one of these. So Podcastoscope, the satellite is out of date. I think that the code base, yeah, it's got its own Podcastoscope now. I should fix that sometime soon. Get that worked out like the other side projects. But if I don't have any examples of render ink or the render layer getting used, test, typing, standalone, spling, shuffle, post set, reversal. Okay, I don't have any. So I gotta just figure it out from reading a source. Wow, okay. Haven't seen that in a while. Render context. Okay. That means that I don't have to manually include render or OpenGL because the render layer would have done it. That's pretty much what that means. Yeah, that's just, okay, so render inc should take me to render abs. That was the wrong one. Okay. I think I should be able to do R renderer init. Okay, so we have this internal canvas texture which is being created, which is not multi-sampled. So this is just the canvas for text rendering and quads and stuff. The problem is it's not transparent, it's opaque. So I think, what are the renderer frame buffers here? Frame buffer. Okay, one frame buffer. Okay, so one frame buffer, one canvas texture. The canvas texture is just an RGB texture. And so we're going to do we're going to do all of the rendering that I've already got, my custom rendering, on a multi-sample buffer. And then we're going to blit it onto this one. And so the new feature render the new feature that I want for now is a backdoor in the OpenGL implementation of the renderer, so that it's like, let's see, OGL render impl render inc. Right, so we're grabbing OGL render impl right there. So after our canvas and knit, you'll be able to call blit to canvas, and you'll give it a frame buffer, and all of the usual blit parameters. And that looks like this. We draw onto the frame buffer. We blit from the source frame buffer. We don't explicitly bind the frame buffer again when we're submitting quads. I assume that's because I didn't really do this very well, but looking at something like when we canvas a init, we bind the main frame buffer to set it. Submit quads. How did this work? GL bind frame buffer. Just show me all the places where this is getting called. I want to look at them. So this is setting it up. This is expanding it, or like, yeah, expanding the frame buffer's texture. Okay, and this is the one I was missing. This is the one where we bind it for the beginning of a render, and we're just assuming it stays there. So if we're going to have an extension provided by OGL render impl, it should also follow the rule that it leaves everything bound to this when it's done. And then these will just be right. Okay, so my build viewer is going to need the obj from raw from right here. So I still get everything, but I haven't actually done anything but initialize the render layer so far. So I need to now give it a chance to mess things up. Render init, app, update, and render. So here we go. OGL begin. And it's going to do all this stuff. Doesn't matter what you initialize it with, because we're gonna just blit into it right away. So let's fill it with 0 because that's probably the cheapest option. Then we're gonna call our OGL blit to canvas. This lets us blit from the main frame buffer, which we've been relying on. To this buffer, like this. And then I'm going to show canvas on activated window. Did we get it? Okay. That's not so bad. We can figure that out. What's happening there? There's one extra canvas blitting happening today. This one, and then also show canvas. So that takes this one to this one by canvas dim minus RGL renderer dim. Okay. Okay, I think we need to make it look more like this. There we go. So it's a little busted, right? But I think we can fix it by saying we won't actually have you pass in the destinations because we can actually figure those out ourselves. And we figure those out by going, well, basically by going, they need to look like these. Uh-oh. Back it up. Canvas dim should definitely be onto the main frame buffer. Huh, what am I missing? What am I missing? What was the OpenGL error, I wonder? Because the dim gets set when we canvas init. dim 0 to that to dim.x dim.y. Seems like that should work. Okay, it does. It does. Only issue now is we should probably not be passing these either. Okay, so that's all working. Now we need to start making some render layer calls. The way you do that is you set up a helper context. Render helper. What exactly was it called? Was it the batch? It looks like to use the helper here, I'm gonna need to begin the window this way. Because this creates the helper context. It'll init the canvas too, so I gotta put them all in that. Okay. So that means we transform it again. You don't look like this anymore. this will become our begin window, and that'll take responsibility for the back end init, which is this part, and the canvas init that I eliminated down there. And it determines the window dim itself too, so that we don't actually need to do this, because we're going to be able to do okay, so I begin the renderer that way. That's taking over I think that's about it. And the other big problem is that stuff got a bit out of hand with this render system by the end. So a condensing process will be useful there. Okay, so now what I should be able to do is go and call some of these render helper functions, like string f. Last I remember, there was also limitations like the render layer actually doesn't support rotating strings, even though the low-level graphical part does. The helper layer just doesn't do anything to help you with it, or something like that. Right, you can see I placed down a P and a string and a color and just hope for the best. Fine for now. So solid black is the color. We need to grab a font. We're going to render it at let's just put it at 0, 0 for now. And the string will be hello world. Very good. Okay. We just need to set up a font. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how that makes sense. Right, so for that to work, do it like that with a null. Okay. How come you think that? Wait. What is this? This isn't it. What is this block doing here? I was looking for app init. Here it is. There we go. But no hello world. Got some data. Got what looks like a font here. This looks like a texture in a baked font. So let's take a look at that moment where I thought I would see a string show up. I thought right here, we'd go in here, and you'd make a string, and you'd go R string, and you'd go prep a batch, you'd go batch push string. Hello, welcome. Batch push quad. So the batch gets the quad. Okay, so all that looks like we just come through here and we should have it ready to go. Oh, you know what? There's no flush happening though. That's because we got to replace this with this to get the whole machine working. All right, so the other piece of this is that okay. So that wasn't enough. But we did our begin, got the canvas, dimensions, rendered to our own thing, which we know works because this part is working. It's just this part that didn't show up. Let's try it this way. Let me just double check one other thing. Yeah, it's gonna flush and then show the canvas. So that should work. Just one more time, double check I didn't miss it. Yeah, nothing. Okay. Render doc time. Thought I saved this. Load settings. There it is. There it is. Launch. Okay. Capture a frame. Very good. So. It's not hitting the right spot or something. It looks like it's using this for output, using this for input. It's got the right number of instances, but nothing shows up. What is this? This is strange. Why can't I zoom in on this better? I don't know what this is. I don't know how to. There we go. Yeah, so it's putting geometry down in the right spot, but it looks like there's a disagreement. This is for one instance. How do I look at multiple instances? Up here on top. Here we go. Yeah. Cool. But how come it's getting missed? It looks like it must be because it's using the wrong section of the canvas. Canvas init says okay, this doesn't work. I mean, like, I have to do this again whenever I want. There we go. Okay. So but there we go. Okay, so I can put some text on the screen. So now I want to make a decision. Am I gonna make today about the integration problems and the rendering problems, or am I gonna make it about the asset viewer? The next step would be show the name of this somewhere, create a list here, and start laying things out. So we have a list here and we can filter on it, and then select things out of the list to view, toggle options at runtime about, you know, if we want him to flip around and dance and change sizes or whatever. which is going to mean for now doing stuff like this. We're going to get started on that. All right. Now I wish I could use the rectangles before the canvas too. I'm getting blocked on the other side by the fact that to do that I would have to do some rendering in Blit 2, the frame buffer. It's pain. Let's ignore it. Let's just ignore it. I would have liked to put a checkerboard for the transparency background, but it's fine. Let's see. Next up. Nice. And we could go over here and turn on rolling select just to see them going. Okay. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me get these back up. Can I? There we go. Also had remedy and render doc up. Okay. So, well, another option is to call it a day. It is about an hour and a half into the second stream, and I streamed a very long session this morning, about 3 hours. I think that's about how much I usually do. That might be why I am feeling gassed as well. But yeah, actually, I guess that's the right call. I think the next step here is to set up text field editing that I can control from right over here, and see if I can't build like some actual controls. And all that control building stuff is like a whole nother layer to get into that I've hardly cracked. I only have this control working so far. So maybe maybe I could say the rest for tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna make that call. With that, I think it's been a pretty good day. One more day of this tile set viewing, and then we will get back to the normal program of RPG simulation and object file manipulation and that stuff. I just thought it might be fun to take a break, and this has not only proven to be a good learning experience for a certain kind of anti-aliasing with the big pixel art stuff, but it's also revealing that I really haven't finished designing the render layer, and that's partly why it's so far behind. Is I knew there were some things that were wrong with it, but now I've got the true real world experience of colliding with its rigidness and its overbearing design. So I should be able to do something about that soon. I don't think I want to dive into that during this fun little jam session. There's a couple days of jamming on this, but it fills out yet more things that I can explore doing with the code base before long. So that's pretty cool. And with that, I am gonna sign off for today. If you've been hanging out, thanks for coming around and seeing what I'm doing, and I will see you around the internet. Bye.